Hi, Jakey Steve here, the long-haired freaky dude. Today I'm going to review Book 3 of the Histories of Herodotus, named after Thalia, the muse of dramatic comedy. Ha 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 ha, 'tis to laugh. Translated into English by George Rawlinson. Book 3 still has many wonderful marvels and fantastical tales. It covers the reign of King Cambyses of Persia and all of the associated insanity. Crazy over the rainbow, I am crazy. There must have been a door there in the wall when I came in. He really was crazy. He might have been able to conquer Egypt in Book 2, but for some reason he just can't do the same with the Ethiopians, Carthaginians, and Ammonians in Book 3. Cambyses dies, his throne is taken by an imposter, Smerdis, and then the imposter is killed by a group of 7 who had the opportunity to make Persia a democracy. But no! Instead they elect a dude named Darius, their monarch. And after this, and because of this, we start to see the tensions building up between Greece and Persia. And the book ends with a rather comical overthrow of a Babylonian rebellion. Cambyses. This guy was one flew over the cuckoo's nest. Minnery, minnery, cuttery corn, apple seed and apple thorn, wire, briar, limberlock, 3 geese in a flock. One flew east, one flew west, and one flew over the cuckoo's nest. If there's a movie about Cambyses, Jack Nicholson could have played him perfectly. Not only did he make some crazy decisions and have a very bad temper which caused him to kill wives, sisters, and children. Hey, I have an idea, let's play a game! 2 of the 3 listed, wives, sisters, and children's, are actually the same. Can you guess who? It's harder than it looks, isn't it? Whenever King Cambyses wanted to know if it was legal to marry his sister, he asked the supreme judges of Persia if there was a law against it. This is what the judges found. They did not find any law allowing a brother to take his sister to wife, but they found a law that the king of the Persians might do whatever he pleased. Gee, how convenient. I would have never guessed. This guy's the monarch. Don't you think he would have known that there was a law already that he could do whatever the hell he wanted? I don't know. It took him, I guess, long enough to marry his sister to find out that he could do anything he wanted. Anyways, Herodotus diagnoses Cambyses with epilepsy. I didn't even know they knew what that was back then. I guess Hippocrates was doing something right. But beyond all that, Herodotus doesn't think that this is what makes him insane. Not even the pre-mentioned things. Not the anger, not the poor decisions, not the temper, not the epilepsy. Here's what he says above all makes Cambyses insane. After Cambyses enters an Egyptian temple and insults their customs, Herodotus says this: "Thus it appears to me, by a great variety of proofs, that Cambyses was raving mad. He would not else have set himself to mock of holy rites, long-established usages. For if one were to offer man to choose out of all the customs in the world, such as seemed to them the best, they would examine the whole number, and end by preferring their own, so convinced that their own usages far surpasses those of all others. Unless, therefore, a man was mad, it is not likely that he would make sport of such matters." I think his explanation of this is the shining example, perhaps the best example, of why Herodotus' histories have stood the test of time, and why he set the mold for histories to come. History in journalism is meant to be objective, and part of that objectivity is to respect other cultures' customs. And Herodotus does a phenomenal job at this. He doesn't insult other ways. He offers them merely as another way of doing things. And I don't think this is important just as a historian, but also as a human being. Anything else, and you are, as Herodotus says, raving mad. Think about it. Are not many of the insane people that you know, that you see on the news, that you hear on the radio, people who defile other people's customs or other people's ways of living? Well, back to the conquest of Cambyses. He tried to conquer Africa beyond Egypt, but ultimately failed, because Cambyses is a failure. He grew sympathetic for the Carthaginians. 50,000 soldiers going to attack Ammonia were swept away forever in a sandstorm. 50,000! And those going to Ethiopia, well, you see, there's a lot of desert betwixt Egypt and Ethiopia. A lot of desert means not so much food. So there's hundreds of thousands of soldiers marching to Ethiopia without food. They're growing hungry. What do you do whenever you're hungry? You eat comrades. Don't eat your comrades, buy DirecTV. When Cambyses learned that his army was snacking upon itself, he decided to pull out and abandon the attempt on Ethiopia. But when they came to the bare sand, a portion of them were guilty of a horrid deed. By then they cast lots for a man, who was slain to be the food of the others. When Cambyses heard of these doings, alarmed at such cannibalism, he gave up on his attack on Ethiopia. Alarmed at such cannibalism! That right there, hands down, is the best line in history. You don't get much better than that. Alarmed at such cannibalism. Such cannibalism, not cannibalism itself, but such cannibalism. What other cannibalism's going on? It's the ancient world, people. It's going on everywhere. Still really funny, though. Anywho, during this, we get some accounts of Ethiopian culture. One thing which really struck me by surprise is that they put their dead in clear crystal coffins, which they leave out so loved ones can always see their dead. I'm guessing this might have actually been glass coffins. Glass. Glass. You know, like Galinda. Glass. I know there's a lot of sand, but I was unaware that glass was a commodity of ancient cultures. I mean, what else could it have been made of? Certainly not huge crystals like it says. While Cambyses was back being crazy in the desert, back in the Persian homeland, a Mede who pretended to be Cambyses' brother Smerdis took the throne. You see, Cambyses, of course, had a dream that his brother Smerdis was going to take over his empire. So he killed his brother Smerdis without telling anyone. But it turns out it was a different Smerdis who took his empire. And if he hadn't have killed his real brother Smerdis, this would have never happened. Of course. Cambyses finally sees his heir and says this: I feared and did what was more hasty than wise. A lot of us do that. Hasty things that we fear and then later regret. In these situations, the best thing to do is just sit down. Think things over before acting in blind rage. If you have a dream that someone's gonna kill you, think it over before killing them, okay, please? Cambyses dies of an accidental self-inflicted wound. Didn't Mama tell you not to run with knives? And would that also make your mom your sister? Anyways, Smerdis is now in full rule, but some people suspect his trickery. A really awesome guy named Otanes gets a group of 7 people together, including the future monarch Darius, to plot to kill the king Smerdis. Initially, they want to wait a few days, perhaps even weeks, to think their plot through, but Darius makes a really great point about this. Go through with the plot now, today, or inevitably someone in the group is going to betray them. That's the most sensible betrayal thing I've ever heard. So they go through the plan that day and kill Smerdis. Because, you know, time and regrets, they correlate, you know? Funny note, since Smerdis was a magi, and he was killed, now everyone goes out into the streets and kills magis to follow the example. People really are horrible. Persian see, Persian do. They even establish a holiday for magi killing. How nice. But now that the Persian Empire is without a leader, the 7 now have a chance to establish whatever kind of government they want in Persia. Arguments are made for democracy, oligarchy, and monarchy. Otanes makes some really incredible arguments in favor of democracy. The rule of one is neither good nor pleasant. Simple enough. Maybe with the rule of one, sometimes there tends to be a diamond in the rough, but generally a bad egg comes and takes over and stinks the whole place up once it cracks open. How indeed is it possible that monarchy should be a well-adjusted thing, when it allows a man to do as he likes without being answerable? Such license is enough to stir strange and wanton thought in the heart of even the worthiest of men. Power goes to people's heads. Power corrupts, even the best of us. Even those of us with the best moral intentions. Pride and envy together include all wickedness. More often than not, I suppose the root of evil comes from these things. Though I would argue that pride and envy aren't inherently bad things, they can lead to bad things. I vote that we do away with monarchies and raise the power to the people. For the people are all in all. Man, I might as well have just read Hattain's whole speech. But it really was a great early example of an argument in favor of democracy. And there's one point that I would like to read from the oligarchy standpoint as well, which I see almost as an argument for a republic. Definitely not the same thing, of course, but they do have similar components, so that there are things which can be compared, taken out of it. The mob rushes wildly into state affairs with all the fury of a stream swollen in winter and confuses everything. It's unfortunate, but it's true. If people go into voting for things ignorant of what they're voting for, things are gonna get screwed up. That's why we elect people whose job it is to deal with these ordeals and handle them. But even so, this quote still applies. If we go into vote ignorant of who we're voting for, things are still gonna get screwed up. For democracy to work, the people need to be educated of what they're voting for. And they need to be able to create their own opinions and ideas on the matter. But ultimately, Darius's monarchy argument prevails, and through trickery of neighing horses, he becomes the monarch. You know, those 7, other than Hattain's and the oligarchy guy, they're such hypocrites. They voted. The 7 voted on which government they wanted. They voted for a monarchy. How hypocritical to collectively vote for an autocracy. It's a paradox. How do you vote for an autocracy? I don't get it. You voted to remove your voting power. Oh my God, it just, ugh. Vote for a democracy, or at least an oligarchy. Ugh. One of the great tragedies of history. I wish you would have won, Hattain's. I wish you would have won. Anyways. Initially, Darius lays low and he puts conquering nations on a standby. But as tensions between Greece and Persia increase, he conquers the island of Samos. And then, because a captured, but not really captured, Greek physician named Democedes removed a boob boil from Darius's wife, he fulfilled Democedes' wish to spy on the Greeks and go to war with them. And all only so he could escape to his own country. Democedes, who wasn't even really a slave, encouraged the Persians to start a war with the Greeks so that he could go back to Greece. It just makes no sense. What a selfish jerk. With that plan, there might not be any home. Fool. Tensions would have probably grown much quicker had the war not been delayed for a few years, thanks to the Babylonians revolting. And the way that they revolt is just so clever. It just blows my mind, really it does. You see my head? No, of course you don't, because it exploded. They decide to murder all of their women so that their race becomes extinct. Couldn't have thought of a better plan. Now, the way that the Persians retake Babylon is actually brilliant. No sarcasm there. A huge official named Zopyrus mutilates his face, cuts off ears and limbs and such, you know, just hacks it all up with a razor. Nice and mutilated. No stranger's hands have wrought this work on me, but my own only. I maimed myself because I cannot endure that the Assyrians should laugh at the Persians. It sounds crazy cutting your own face up, but it's actually a really brilliant ploy. He does this so that he could go to Babylon and tell them that he was a very high official who was maimed and wronged by Darius, and that he wants revenge. So he asks for control of a Babylonian army. Babylon gives it to him. You gotta remember, these are the same guys that thought they could revolt by killing their women and making their race extinct. So Zopyrus prearranged with Darius to have 3 battles, all of which Zopyrus would win, prearranged with his Babylonian army. Darius consents and lets thousands of his own Persian men get slaughtered. This gives Zopyrus a lot of credit for winning 3 battles. Three battles against the Persians. And everyone absolutely loves him now. He's a war hero. He's a general. So they give him the whole army, the whole Babylonian army, and the keys to the city. Now when the Persians arrive for the 4th time, Zopyrus simply opens the Babylonian door, backs his army off, and lets the Persians take over. Simple as that. It really is a brilliant case of espionage. It's like a medieval homeland. And that's where book 3 ends. It really is a great book, and I really encourage you to read it. If not for enjoying the marvelous stories, then for understanding why Herodotus has stood the test of time. Before I conclude, there's just a few more things which I want to discuss about this book. He goes over a bit of Far Eastern geography, and then we encounter. Here in the desert there live amid the sand great ants, in size somewhat less than dogs, but bigger than foxes. which is absolutely horrifying. I'm sure it's just poor translations, but anyways. Herodotus says, the Indians who are more numerous than any other nation. That's quite surprising. Apparently, even back then, even in the ancient Greek times, India was one of the, if not the most populous nation in the world. Not much has changed, huh? He also describes some Indians that believe that all life is precious. Alright now, Morgan. Including animals, and are thus vegetarians. They forbid killing any kind of animal, even bugs. And this of course is still practiced by many modern sects of Hindu. I think it's incredible. Not only that the custom has lasted that long, but that it was a custom back then. I mean, back in the day when cannibals and immorality were running rampant all over the place, and you had to work really freaking hard to get your food, vegetarianism is a very surprising custom, and it sticks out from many of the others that Herodotus mentions. I mean, vegetarianism sounds like a very painful custom, but it's still incredible, and the reason behind it is of course admirable. And here's some more words from Darius which were rather thought-provoking. There are many things easy enough in act, which by speech it is hard enough to explain. There are also things concerning which speech is easy, but no noble action follows when the speech is done. Sometimes it's hard to explain the things we do, and sometimes it's hard to do the things that we explain. Word and action are very hard to harmonize, and it often makes us hypocritical. But the truth of the matter is that the two don't always go together, no matter how hard we try. And yet another thing. Whether men lie or say true, it is with one and the same object. Men lie because they think to gain by deceiving others, and speak the truth because they expect to get something by their true speaking, and to be trusted afterwards in more important matters. Thus, though their conduct is so opposite, the end of both is alike. If there were no gain to be got, your true speaking man would tell untruths, as much as your liar, and your liar would tell the truth as much as your true speaking man. Are truths and lies really so similar? Do they really have the same ends? Maybe it's a good rule of thumb, but I think there are definitely some exceptions to this rule. On either side, liars and truth tellers. I like to think it isn't true, but how else do I explain, for instance, the occasion whenever I just lie on the whim without thinking about it? Just spontaneously, impulsively, just because it makes the situation easier, at least at the time being. I don't know, I'd have to ponder it some more. But if the motives of truth-sayers really was as selfish as the liars, well, that's just depressing. But it's probably true. Feel free to start a discussion about this or anything else from Book 3 of the Histories of Herodotus in the comments section below. Do feel free to speak your mind, however vulgar your mind may be, because I'm sure the ancient Greek world was even more vulgar than your mind. Well, I'm Jakey Steve for the Long-Haired Freaky Dude. Thank you for watching this book review. If you like to read great books such as this, then might I suggest taking the Great Books Challenge. I'm sure it's something you'd love to do. If you want to see other great things like cooking tutorials or headbanging to classical music, then might I suggest checking out my channel and hitting the subscribe button. There will be many great videos in the future. Well, thank you all for watching. See you in the next video. Have a great day.